This lesson is about theoretical versus experimental probability. You already have an idea of a concept of what theoretical probability is. That's what we did in section 1. But now in section 2, I just want to get into a little bit more detail about what it is. Now, when we talk theoretical, we're talking that suppose you remove all outside influences. It's basically, this is what should happen every time. This is what should occur. So if I throw a penny in the air, theoretically, it should come down every single time. Why? Because we know that gravity pulls on any object tossed into the air. So experimental is the actual going out into nature and actually throwing a penny in the air. So, and then judging to see what happened. Maybe it gets caught on a tree branch. Maybe it comes down. Maybe the wind takes it. We have no idea. But, so this is theoretical versus experimental. Theoretical is what should happen every single time. Now, let's use the example of flipping a coin in the air. So if I was to flip a coin in the air, we know, once again, that the possible outcomes are, it could be heads or tails. Those are my possible outcomes. So if I said, okay, what is the probability that the coin I toss in the air will land on heads? Well, we would take a look and we would say, okay, well, the possible outcomes, there are two possible outcomes. We would say, why is it two? Because it could either be heads or it could be tails. So that's why we got two possible outcomes. The chance that it land on heads, there is only one situation that will give me heads. So it is 1 out of 2, or as we say, 50% probability. That I just mentioned is what we call theoretical probability. All it does is take into account the possible outcomes and the likelihood that what we are looking for happens. That's all. That's what we did in the last section. So that's what we call theoretical probability. So experimental probability, let's look at that. All right, first we're going to look at experimental probability. Let's suppose that we had 10 coins in my hand, and I tossed the 10 coins into the air. Well, theoretically, we know that each coin will give me two possible outcomes, either heads or tails. And because I have 10 of them, that will technically give me 20 possible outcomes, theoretically, right? So, and we know that each coin has a heads or a tails. So if each coin has a heads or a tails, that gives me 10 possible coins, a likelihood or 10 chances that the coins can land on head. So theoretically, it is, once again, 1/2. Now, experimental says, okay, but that's not theoretical. We're going to actually walk outside and throw these coins into the air, and they're going to land on the ground. All right, so here it is. I have 10 coins in the air. I throw them. Let's suppose that coin 1 gives me heads, coin 2 gives me tails, coin 3 gives me tails, coin 4 lands on the ground, gives me tails, and coin 5, coin 6, the rest of the coins I pick up all land on heads. Now, theoretically, we know that if I was to throw 10 coins in the air, 5 of them should land on heads, 5 should land on tails. Why? Because there's only a 50% chance that I get heads and 50% chance that I get tails. So that means out of 10 coins, 5 should land on heads, 5 should land on tails. But in this situation, that's not what happened. In this situation, we had 7 coins land on heads, and 3 coins landed on tails. All right? So what does that leave us? That leaves us with a 7 out of 10 probability, experimental probability where, or 70% landed on heads. Now, please listen to what I'm saying. That means 70% of the coins that we threw into the air landed on heads. Now, we know it's supposed to be around 50%, theoretically, but that's not what happened here. Now, in this situation, it's nothing to be alarmed at because we only tossed 10 coins into the air. Now, the more coins we toss, the more likelihood that it's going to go towards that 50%. Now, if we toss 10,000 coins into the air, the numbers will be very close. You will have right around 5,000 coins will land on heads, and about 5,000 coins will land on tails. That is how it works. The more events that you do, these are called events, the more events that you do, the closer it will get to the theoretical probability. Right now, we only did 10 coins, and that's not enough to make any type of decisions off of. But the more you throw, 10,000, 100,000, 200,000, the closer you will get to the magic number of 50%. So that's the little rundown of experimental probability and theoretical probability. Experimental probability is what numbers that I actually get when I did the actual experiment. And in this case, I got 70%. 50% is I did not do the experiment. I strictly took what should happen if I was to go outside and actually do this experiment. And if you don't believe me, when you go home today, take out a bunch of coins and toss them up into the air, and you will see that 50% will land about on heads and 50% will land on tails.